What's up, everybody? This is John Hamilton from Department of Sound, the Executive Director. I'm here with Jessica Mao. She's our operations lead, as well as Benoit Shepard. Students, you know him. He's your lead instructor. And I'd like to welcome a good buddy of mine, very dope producer, musician, artist, BL'EVE Brown. Yep. So BL'EVE's an alumni of Institute of Audio Research in New York. He's got credits from Def Jam, Epic Records, BET. He's an artist, rapper himself, but he's also a producer, engineer, audio aficionado, self-proclaimed media connoisseur. He's always taught me that. So, yeah, we are going to be asking him some questions today. And we're also going to be jumping into one of his tracks. BL'EVE, what's the track called?
Understand by Jay Jones.
Awesome. So we're going to kick off with a few questions, and then we'll jump into the track. So, BL'EVE, why don't you just introduce yourself, give a little short bio on your background and everything, and just for everyone to know about you.
Yeah, man. Well, my name is BL'EVE Brown. I've been working in the New York tri-state area for about 15 plus years now. Started off at a studio 151 where we had a lot of hip hop guys MOP, Busta Rhymes, all of that stuff. I was an intern. So, moved up from interning to doing pretty much tracking engineering. And then a couple years of that, one of my good friends and mentors that I met at that studio, 151 West 25th, he came to me with a proposition to open up a studio with him. And so I opened up that studio. It's called Marvelous Recordings. And then I had my production facility in the back. So we were on 23rd and Park at that time. And I worked with everybody, all the dope New York guys, Funkmaster Flex, Stack Bundles, Mano, it goes on. So I'm just pretty much a fixture in the Midtown New York City music scene. And, I've just been rocking out. I focus on independent artists, though. I like to help independent guys, get to that next level of bureaucracy in the music.
Absolutely. And BL'EVE, why don't you go back a bit further? Where are you from originally? When did you really start to see that music was going to be your path? And yeah, what brought you to becoming where you are now?
Okay, cool. Yeah, man. So I was born in Kingston, Jamaica. I immigrated here at 5 years old. I moved to Harlem, New York. And I was always immersed in music because my uncles and all of them, they did all the big live sound stuff. How Jamaicans have the big clashes and stuff like that. So my uncles in the 90s, they used to have these really big sound clash parties in Trenton where all the guys from New York would drive down. It was a crazy thing. All the who's who people would come down for these clashes, and I would be that little kid with my cousins in these clashes. So you learn a lot about sonics when you're doing that because it's a real serious setups when you got subs, you got mids, you got highs, you got crossovers, and this is the 90s, so that's before you got to all of this super automated stuff. So you had to actually have gear, you had to understand the signal flow. No knock to anything that's going on now, because I actually love it, because I kind of hated having to wire everything up, especially if you had sound modules and all of that stuff. But it started from that, and my uncle Clive, he was a part of the Poor Righteous Teachers group, and one of their big songs, Easy Star, if you go check that out online, he's the Jamaican dude with the black bandana. That's kind of part of why I wear black bandana, kind of like an homage to my uncle. But they never got him particularly super mainstream success, even though Poor Righteous Teachers is a huge hip hop group. But his part in it, he's pretty much on the Easy Star record. And I kind of learned a lot about the music business at that young age from seeing what they went through that whole period of time. So yeah. That's the early start. And then I started playing the drums in middle school, and I was just yeah, man, I'm gonna do this. So that's I get long-winded, so that's
yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. Can I ask one real quick, John?
Yeah, absolutely.
BL'EVE, again, man, appreciate you being here. So how old were you? You know, because this was a part of your family. I ask most people I come into contact with in life this general question. When did it start for you? And you kind of told us where and that it was your uncle. But what age was that? What age was that when you're like, you know what? This is part of my life, and I'm going to kind of walk with this. Do you remember kind of where that was time-wise for you?
Okay, like as far as music goes, because I missed the part. So all right, so when all of that stuff was going on, I met my uncles and them in Trenton. So I came here when I was 5, right? I was about 8 the first time I started going down to Trenton and seeing all of that stuff. Before that, I was pretty much sheltered, you know what I mean? Just like close, my father's family and my mother's family, like the people that you live around, and that was pretty much it. So at about 8 years old, we started to go out there, and then also I was in chorus, and I really liked like, back then, like kind of everybody had to be in chorus in elementary school or whatever. But I really liked the writing of John Lennon's Imagine. We sung that record for a concert, and I was just like, yo, this is pretty dope. So I kind of always been involved with it, going through the motions of, singing in chorus and doing all of that stuff until I got to middle school. So when I got to middle school, that was the first time I was allowed to play the drums, because I always wanted to play the drums. But in elementary school, it wasn't an option. It was like, oh, you got to play a flute or a violin or a clarinet. And I was like, man, I don't want to do none of that. I'm going to just sing. You know what I'm saying? So I was just doing my thing. And then when I got to middle school, though, and I started playing the drums, that's kind of when everything locked in, because I started to meet other musicians. So now I'm meeting other musicians. They had, I don't know if you guys know, like these old Windows-based production programs. Like one is called Mod Plug Tracker. And all Mod Plug is a MIDI roll. So it's a MIDI roll, and you plug in samples in it. So around the time I started drumming, we found that was freeware online, and we started messing around with these samples and everything. And then, I'm also looking up to my uncle, which I'm seeing doing this Poor Righteous Teachers thing and everything. He's on MTV and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, it spoke to me. It would just always center my attention, always, like more than going and doing miscellaneous stuff. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm gonna mess around with this. And that's kind of where it started. So yeah.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, because you guys know I'm an educator and I've taught pretty much all ages. So I've been that person who's like, sorry, you got to play a flute or a clarinet unless you want to come sing over here. So yeah. So it was choir, it was music with your family, and it was drums in middle school.
Yeah. Because
okay, man.
I don't know if they still do it now, but they used to have a lot of step teams back in hoods, right? So, if you chilling, like you always going to the practices, right? That's where all the girls at, right? So you see them doing all the dancing with the flags and stuff. And then I would always see the snare drum player, because that was my main instrument as well when I got to middle school. So once I saw them, I was probably like in 5th grade. I was just like, I would go and say, hey man, I want to play the drums. This is what I would tell the music teacher in elementary school. And I'm like, oh, that's not an option. It's not an option. It's not an option. So once I got to middle school, it was an option. And I went straight, like probably like the 2nd day of school, 3rd day of school, my band teacher, I love her, Miss Rob, right? I went into her thing and I was like, I want to play the drums. She's like, let me see what you got. I'm holding the sticks all wrong and everything, what I'm saying? On top of everything, and I just start going. And she was like, all right, you got rhythm. And then she's like, but how you hold the sticks? You know what I'm saying? And then it pretty much started from there. I just kind of locked into music along with, other things that we do when we're in the environment. But my music was like my main focus the whole time. All the people telling me, oh, that's not a real thing. You can't really do that. It's not. It's people like you can't do that. I heard that so many times. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That's one I'm gonna give to the students, because a lot of them don't see the connection between where this music come from, the fact that you might hit a drum, and when you go to making music, that they're all kind of connected. So I appreciate you kind of helping connect those dots.
So I'm a drummer, right? And when I started doing the Mod Plug drumming stuff, and I was messing around with that stuff for a very long time, putting in samples and everything, I was making beats without snares. and I'm a drummer. Like I'm snare drum in band class, and I'm making this digital music, and the element that's missing from the whole thing, because I'm so caught up in all the different sounds, is the snare. And then one day somebody was like, "Yo, man, where the snare?" I was like, "Yo, I play the drums. What's?" How could I not? Yeah, that was a little funny one though. Yeah, but that's it, man.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No doubt, bro.
Yeah, so BL'EVE, let's talk tools. With the kids we're teaching, mainly they're on tablets, mobile devices, or computers, and they're using a basic web-based DAW called Soundtrap. I think when it comes to music production, there's so many tools out there. So obviously you can get very complex, you can spend a bunch of money, but I want to know your philosophy on the tools and also like what you use specifically, just in general.
Okay, right now I'm using Machine Studio as the main brain for the production part of it.
What is that specifically?
It's pretty much a drum machine. It's a drum machine that connects via MIDI.
Okay.
Not MIDI, via USB. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just like if you saw MPC 2000 drum machine back, they model it like that.
Okay.
But instead of you just loading in samples into the machine, now you have, different VSTs that you could open. You could actually use your whatever your audio suite is of EQs and compressors and all of that stuff all in it. But the visual outlook of it is like a drum machine. So I would consider this a drum machine, because then you have like, this is a micro Korg over here, and this is a small 2-octave synthesizer. You know what I mean? So I use this as the controller to play any kind of melody stuff that I want to play. And then the machine is pretty much the drums and pulling up different VSTs and doing all of that stuff. I don't really arrange in it though. And that's, I would guess to say the difference between me and a lot of guys, because some guys, they'll arrange a whole piece out in machine. I pretty much get the ideas that I want, and then I pull that stuff either into Pro Tools or Ableton.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then just in terms of like people choosing their tools, like what's the kind of thing they want to look for? And, I know for myself, when I was learning, I got very overwhelmed with how much is out there. So I think now that there's so much at your fingertips, is it a thing where what are you specifically looking for in the types of things that you're purchasing or you're using on a day-to-day basis?
For me, it's ease of use. I'll tell you. So before Machine, my main brain for production was Reason. I probably had Reason since I believe 1.5, and I still have Reason installed now. I just don't use it a lot. Sometimes I might hop on there if I'm looking for a certain kind of synth aesthetic that only Reason offers, because they have these particular mods that you could only find in Reason. But I was using Reason for years. So I was using Reason for years. I tried FL Studio, but the earlier versions of FL Studio, the freedom of the MIDI just didn't work for me, and I noticed a lot of guys now that use FL Studio, they don't even need to use, they just use their keyboard on a thing. So I always kind of like to have a piano aside from when I say keyboard, I'm talking about the keys on your laptop, right?
Got it.
They're kind of doing that style of production, which is cool too. It just wasn't the thing that I was looking for. So anytime I would play something on my MIDI controller, I didn't like how it automatically quantized it. Even if you had the quantize off, it just the way it read that information was different.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot more freer. So if you turn off the quantize for me and you played something, it was what I was envisioning in my mind, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Got you.
I would say ease of use, because I did a track, Get Into the Bag, and that's one of the tracks that's not produced in-house, and that's made by a dope producer by the name of Labox. And Labox is exclusive in FL Studio, you know what I mean? And he's a Grammy Award winning producer. So, it's just whatever works for you,
Whatever you need, yeah. Totally.
Ain't a lot of money either, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Find something that works, and if it works for you, lock in and learn that the best you can, because you got to look at it, like you said, tools, right? So if you know GarageBand in and out, front, backwards, up, down, everything, and the guy comes with the machine studio and he only knows how to use that 25%, you're going to beat him out every time. You know?
Just having that knowledge.
Yeah, it's pretty much just learning the device or the interface that you have, like learning it to the best of your ability. And yeah, it'll get the job done. Because this is the thing, they all get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing about it.
All right, cool. So let's jump into this track that you're going to break down for everyone. So why don't you share the screen and then give us a little introduction, who's it by, all that stuff.
Okay, dope. Let me open this up. So you see it now? I think I shared it. Oh, boom.
Yep.
Okay. So this track is called Understand, and it's by an artist by the name of Jay Jones. He's signed to Young Money now. And our managers linked this up when I was doing something at BET, and I sent them over quite a few tracks, maybe like 10 tracks or whatever, and this one made his first project, 2000 Holly Grove, which is pretty dope, you know, and it's one of my favorite tracks, so I was glad that he selected this one. So let's see what we got. I'll break it down. And another thing with me too is I don't always start with drums. And that's also a preference thing. So a lot of guys that start with drums, I like to kind of get a kind of synth melody going, which I'll show you right now.
Yeah. Why don't you play something from the top, like play the whole thing?
Oh, okay, so
just maybe a clip of it so people can kind of see like where it goes, and then we can kind of take it apart.
Okay, I'll play the full body of it. But this is an 8-bar loop which got arranged in Pro Tools later. Okay.
Got it.
We're having some system overload. Plugins going crazy. Hold on.
Oh, we can hear most of it. You know, we got a little technical stuff, but you hear most of it.
Yeah, hold on. I could. This is the. I'll just play a loop of it. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's like that's the beginning. That's actually the tracked out version.
Okay.
That was sequenced out, but that's just so you could get a good loop of it.
Yeah.
So what I started with though for that was this group here. Let me see. And this plugin is Serum. I use this a lot. And then like you see, and you see one thing about like when you're setting up hip hop tracks,
Mm-hmm.
you want to get something that's looping, that's like real memorable. Like other styles of music, you could definitely build out a lot more. But if you get like a really dope 2-bar loop, when you're just talking about like hip hop guys, and then you build out and arrange around that, it's usually always a winner because it'll be that memorable thing that continues to go and go and go. And
build it up.
Yeah, too. So that particular sound is a cool chord.
And that's what you started with? That's what the whole thing was kind of originated off of?
Yeah, so I listened to some of his music that he had out. I like to listen to artists to just get a feel of the voice. And then once I got a feel of the voice, I start to mess around with synthesizers and different like aesthetic sounds to think like what kind of thing would complement the voice. That's one of the things that I do when I'm working. So, you know, I came across that chord right there, and I want to show you something because the chords of it it's important. So if I go to this, I just changed it and I play it. It's like a whole different thing. You know what I mean? So you go through, and those are like just pretty much two chords. But then when I found this one, it made sense. So from there, I have to update that. That's what it was telling me. So that's actually this. That's another sound that I use to layer.
Okay.
See, a lot of these things. So pretty much, I have these two. This is like a full layer here.
Yeah.
Things aren't playing because I did some updates, so I have to like update contact, and I'm seeing that I have to update that 2600 because I updated the OS for the machine. But this whole section right here creates the full synth loop.
Got you.
And then from there, I get the drums going. And if I just bring in the whole drum section.
Go in and view some of those. This kick.
And the tempo for this is 128 BPMs. So it allows you, like when you start to add the hi-hats and all of that stuff, like from about 128 to say like 160, even up to 180. When you're doing hip hop, you kind of do it in half time with the drums, and then you double up on the hi-hats and the different aesthetics in it.
Got you.
Because if I did a 4 on the floor, which is just a kick, it'd be a whole different beat.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, we got that. Then we got this hip snare. Then we got this hi-hat loop. And then after that, we got the 808. And then you always gotta throw like the exciting sauce on it. So we got like this hawk screen that comes around on the one. You know what I'm saying?
It's so funny, it's actually a hawk. Like, you don't think about it when you hear the whole song, but when you separate it like that, it's like, yeah, that's a bird screaming, you know?
Yeah, you throw a nice delay on it. And then that's the first section. And then I also have a crash. So if I play it again from the top with the crash in, you'll hear the crash. It was kind of tucked, so I just wanted you to audibly hear it.
Yeah.
And it all adds to the excitement on the one. You know what I mean? I kind of want to get them that usually gets them going when you just stack it up like that with a nice hit. Yeah. So moving on there.
Nice. Real quick, Jess, do you want to tell everybody how they can ask questions if they want to do that?
Yeah, sure. So If you just go in the Q&A section, it should be in the bottom bar. You can click that and then you can just submit questions, and then we'll just like moderate them and, you know, be able to ask BL'EVE if you guys have any questions about, you know, the song or just anything, you know, about his experience. If you want just general advice, like feel free to shoot that in the Q&A. And then you can also use the chat function. I believe you can say chat to all panelists and attendees, and that would just send a chat if you have any comments or whatever. Feel free to blast them there.
Awesome. Yeah, so BL'EVE, like on this track, like I see it's pretty stripped down. Is that like a focus of yours to like keep things just kind of high quality but minimal?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It depends. So like with the type of music that Jones does, it's like a lot of trap and stuff like that. So it's two ways to look at it. When you're making beats and you just probably going into maybe like a beat battle or a competition type thing.
Yeah.
It's cool to fill up the whole range where you would see a vocal, like if you wanted to put a leading line. So a lot of times when I'm doing things for artists, I try to stay away from like leading stuff that would put a melody, because I might think the melody's hot and then they might hear it and that leading melody might be the one thing that throw them off to say like, you know, I'm not really liking that beat because it's taking them somewhere else. So normally when you do like chords and you work around things outside of something leading, it leaves space for the vocals. So I'm always thinking about that. But sometimes the song, you might want to do that to the song once you get vocals and you say, hey, you know, like maybe if we put an arpeggiator kind of thing or some more guitar stuff, you could always build from that point on. But I like to leave it open because artists usually draw more towards open type records.
Got it. So you're creating like a bed for them to then come in and do their thing on top of, but making sure you leave the space for them.
Right. So that like vocal range part, you know, because I could do something where it's like listen to I could add a leading line and be like do 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 and go off crazy, you know. But then that again changes the whole feel of what's going on.
Got it.
And I like minimalism too, so that's a part of my.
Yeah, totally. All right, cool. We have a question. Greg asks, how do you study your favorite artists?
I listen to a lot of their music over and over and over again. And it's like in stages as well. So the first time, like I use Lil Wayne because he has a lot of work out and, you know, Jones is with Wayne and them. But I love Lil Wayne. So it's just like, you know, if you're a vocalist or a rapper or whatever, you might always listen to what he's rapping, right? And it's just like, all right, cool. Me as a producer, I listen to the raps, but then I'll go back to the song and I'll play the song over and over and over and over to where I'm picking up on what all of the elements going on in the song is doing and how it complements his vocal, you know? So you just got to want to just listen to music for a very long time. Like one song, you can study like one song. If you like the style of one song,
yeah.
Times where you might sit down with that song for an hour and it might be a 3-minute song, but you sit down with that song for an hour and you repeat it. And every time you're listening to it, take your focus to something else. So the first time you listen to it, you might listen to the kick, but just pay a lot of attention to the kick. Like, okay, I like that pattern, you know, and then you move on, listen to what the synths are doing and be like, okay, I like that. And it goes from there, listen to the bass, like, oh, that's a dope bass riff, you know? And you could take it from there into after that, now listening to how they affect everything. Like, yo, is this clap, is it dry or does it have a lot of verb on it? And what does that do to the whole ambience of the song? So you go up into that. That's a good way to study the production side of any song.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And what are some of your favorite producers or artists, maybe specifically in this realm, this hip hop realm, the kind of stuff that you're doing with this piece?
I think Boy One pretty dope.
Okay.
It's a new producer named AP. AP's pretty dope. I mean, it's so many, man. It's a lot of creators, but the ones that I've been able to like really like Boy Wonder, he does a lot of dope stuff similar to this. And another thing too, like this is one track, but you start to mess around with different delays and different distortion effects and all kinds of stuff. You could just go crazy, which is something that he does. I like a lot of early Kanye stuff, you know, like up to Graduation. I thought a lot of that stuff was pretty dope. I would say I like Swizz. I like Swizz's energy. You know what I mean? More so than anything else. So I think it's always something that you could pull from them and kind of pull from all of these guys. Because I had a whole run where, you know, I was like Kanye out. You know, just like listening to everything that he's doing. And this was like, I would say before like Mike Dean got heavily involved with the production, which I like that stuff too, but it changed the feel of what was going on.
Got you.
Who else I like out here? I'm trying to think of is this one more person. I can't think of the name, but
yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
But those ones that I named though, those are the ones that I listen to like now. Oh, can't forget 40.
Okay.
40's dope.
Definitely Drake's primary producer.
Yeah. I love that whole lo-fi vibe that they really homed in on and crafted out. It's pretty.
Yeah. Absolutely. So talk to us about your workflow. How do you just sit down, you make something up? Do you kind of set goals ahead of time and just start working on something? And also, how do you, if you get stuck on something, you get frustrated, how do you approach that? Do you move to something else? Do you get up and take a walk? Do you power through it? Like, how does that work for you?
Okay, I'll start with that one. If you get stuck on an idea, I just move on. I'll save it, you know, however far I get in it, I'll just save it and then I'll move on to something else. The same time though, like I won't get up and I won't leave or whatever. I just be like, that's whack. I'm gonna save that and then I'll start something else up. Or sometimes I'll save as and then I'll start to mess around with it. That's when I don't have like a focus of what I want. A lot of the times though, when I'm working on my songs, I already have like the chorus and stuff for the song. So I'm to whatever that chorus idea is normally, you know? And then it's just like with the case like a Jay Jones, when I do placements, I go and I listen to that artist and I see what they're on and what their vibe is, not to mimic that vibe at all, just to get a idea of like what I think they would like coming from me.
Got you.
What were the other questions?
Just saying, like, how do you find inspiration when you start a track, and like what different parts would you start at? And then also, I mean, you kind of answered it, but how do you work through the times when you're completely blocked, maybe frustrated with it? In part, this is because a lot of our students are just starting with the software, and you know they're having to learn as they create.
Got you. Okay, so if you're coming at it from that stance, right? Sometimes you just need to step away, you know, go outside, maybe go exercise or just play video games or whatever you do to get your mind. Because what you want to do is kind of just reset your mind, you know what I mean? Because you might have had an idea before you sat down on the software and you was like, oh, this is going to be the best one yet, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's not really flaming. So step away from it and reset and don't get frustrated. The whole point, you make the best music when you're having fun. So once you start to not have fun with whatever the idea is, my rule of thumb is step away, right? And whether that be if you got to go and play a game, exercise, talk on the phone with your peoples, whatever, and then come back with a fresh new slate and start from there and mess around. But what you really get inspiration from is just like listening to a lot of music. So if you're that type of person, if you get kind of bummed out, like when I'm working on projects, I don't listen to a lot of modern music, right? I'll like listen to stuff like Joy Division and all of these things that are just like way left. But what it does is that, you know, a lot of those guys that are like, not urban legends, but they're more like obscure. Those guys, they take the risk usually and experiment a lot more. And you might hear something in one of those type of records, if it's your kind of thing, because some people just can't really stomach anything outside of what they like, you know?
Mhm.
But, I'll jump into some indie rock type stuff, some stuff that is just like different, just to hear what the aesthetic is. And sometimes I get inspired by that, you know? And I have like a discipline for myself. Like earlier on in the game, I had this thing where I produced like 60 tracks in like 2 weeks, you know, and the goal in doing that was to push through being frustrated of not getting the idea done. It was just like, you know, you kind of have to get it done. And, you know, my management needed it, you know, it was other politics going on with it, but I set that goal and I achieved it, you know, and they were just like, wow, you know, like I was in the studio 18 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you want to go that aggressive, but you know, I definitely went in and that helped me. I mean, that helped me just like get over that, what I think is whack. Cause that's another thing too. Sometimes you might think something is whack and you'll play it for an artist and he'll like jump out the window. You be like, what? Like that one? Like, no,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking on that too, like how do you deal with criticism, and you know, whether it be a family member or friend or, you know, just someone hearing your stuff. I mean, on both sides of the coin, like how do you deal with people liking your stuff, but also how do you deal with people maybe having an opinion about it that's different than yours? Especially when you're in the process of still making it.
Okay. Well, for me, it's criticism, right? And then it's constructive criticism. I only pay attention to constructive criticism because somebody might hear your music on a bad day and just like tear that shit down, like all the way down, because they're having a bad day. So you want to find a circle of people that are qualified, you know. It might be a little harder if you're not like in a studio setting a lot, but for me, I was always in the studio. Like from the time I was interning, I'm around guys that are like mixing really big records, you know, and they've told me I was whack like a lot of times, and I didn't get mad at it because I respected them, you know, like they're working with all of the big guys at the time. And I would go and I would practice. Like one of the main things, because I was a drummer, anytime I would do like keys, I go to the studio like excited and I was like, yo, check this out. They're like, yeah, man, I love the drums, man, but them keys, man, those trash, bro. Like, come on, man. But I would go back and the studio head engineer, Elliot Thomas, which is another mentor, like I have really good musical mentors, you know what I mean? He sat me down and he gave me an overview of just basic chord progressions, and he's a keyboard player, so he used to tour with whatever, like the Pussycat Dolls or something like that. So he explained to me that the keys is kind of different than you being syncopated with drums. So you kind of want to find those pockets that's a little, you know, you might want to be a little bit before, not too before where it's off, but a little bit before, a little bit after, you kind of find the groove. And then he pretty much explained the keyboard to me so that it wasn't overwhelming. You know what I mean? So if you look, you're pretty much looking at a repeat of just a set of keys.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand, and it just gets higher in octave. So once you know that, all right, from C, what's that, C to B, back around in the sharps and the flats, you pretty much know. You could sit in front of a grand piano and you pretty much know what's going on. So once I got that and I started practicing on the keys, the more I would come to the studio with the information that he gave me and be like, hey, listen to this, what y'all think? He'd be like, oh, it's getting better. Oh, it's getting better, to like, damn, like, oh, yo, you pretty dope. And you know, once I got to the pretty dope part, that's when I started making money with then they would take me around and introduce me to other people. And that, it was a lot of like, in New York City anyway, there's a lot of independent artists working. So you could always, you know, find yourself somewhere working on a dope project. It's like early 2000s. But I don't listen to criticism from people that don't know music, or people that just like love me to death, where like I could play a blank CD, and they're like, oh, that's amazing, believe. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Amazing, yeah.
It's people that I respect, and I know that if it's not good, they'll tell me like I don't like it. And sometimes they might not like it, and it could still be good, but then at least you'll know, you know?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
I look for constructive criticism.
Cool.
Yeah.
You touched on, learning keys and, having someone show you that stuff. So a lot of our students, they're starting out on Soundtrap, and they're basically just have their laptops, or they have a tablet, or even a smartphone, iPhone, Android, something like that. And they're just mainly learning straight off of Soundtrap. No, when it comes to music theory and learning instruments, where does that fit in to you with all this stuff? But also, is that something that people should be stressing about a lot up front, or is that just something more that like you grow with as you get more accomplished as a producer, as you increase your skill set?
Yeah, music theory is great, and music theory also helps with the blocks that you might have when you're creating, right? But again, if you sit down, like if you got a knack for it, you'll kind of know what like feels good. Like I wouldn't even like bug out what it is. If you're using Soundtrap, I'm pretty sure it has a MIDI roll. You know, you could
the keyboard, yep.
Open up the MIDI roll and start to stencil in your ideas, and you snap it to whatever grid, and be proud of your work. Like whatever stage you're at, just be proud of it. You know what I mean? Don't be like bullheaded to be like, well, this is what you know what I mean? Nothing like that, but be proud of where you're at in the process, because that allows you to grow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We got another question from Greg. He asks, how do you practice making beats? Do you make them fast? Do you work on them forever? Combination of it? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I do a combination. And when you hear people say like usually the best beats are like the quickest ones, they're not lying about it. It's just something about those quick beats that people just like, I don't know, they just like them. It
means when you come up with something quickly, like it just flows, and then like that idea is done, is what you're saying.
Yeah, like look, example, the first set of beats that I sent to Jay Jones, 10 beats, right? This track is the first track, very first one. Like when I opened up everything and I'm like, Jones, right?
Yeah.
I made it in one day. The meat and potatoes of it, like I went back and,
fixed it up.
And all of that, but the meat and potatoes of it was done that one day, and I was just like, yeah. And then you could say the other 9, maybe I was overthinking, maybe it wasn't his vibe, but whatever. Yeah. I made that one like in a day, and I've had tracks though where something is just doesn't feel right to me, and I might spend 2 months on it. Mm-hmm. I've had tracks just like take me into the ground. Like, yo, what's going on with this? It was just always something that wasn't right with the track. And you usually find out it might be a drum and bass or 808 combination. It might just be the removing of a couple of synths. So it's a few things, and sometimes you need that separation to come back with fresh ears to assess that. But I'm not one of the guys that sit up here and be like, yo, son, I make all my beats in 5 minutes, son. Like, because I know guys like that too, but they have a lot of things that might just be like a kick, a snare, and whatever. And then I got the guys that just spend too much time on it. I know people that's been saying they're about to put out a project for like a decade now, and I'm just like, it's just never right. Like, I'm like, yo, bro, like 10 years passed, bro. Like,
yeah,
you get like a single or something, but it is. So if you stay in the middle of the road, I think it's good. The more you produce, though, the better you get. So if you're just starting off, I would say try to make a beat a day if you could. If life doesn't permit that and you got just the weekends, try to make a beat every weekend. But make sure you carve out the time to make the beat, because your understanding gets better every time you look at the interface without knowing anything.
Yeah.
It's just the time you spend on it. Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, and I guess along with that question is, how important is it, have you found, is just to like keep putting work out, rather than finishing a bunch of stuff, keep it on your hard drive, worrying about how good it is, how important it is to you, because you got a long career already and you're not even that old, and you've been putting stuff out for over a decade. Like, how important has that been for your career and to kind of keep things moving and keep things creatively fresh?
I think it's very important for the simple fact that it time dates where your creativity was at the time. So I put out a project, Short Thoughts, right? When did Short Thoughts? Short Thoughts came out, I think, 2011, right? And when that was like my first debut project outside of being a producer. Before that, I was credited for producing a lot of guys' records and things like that. But that was my first project, full length, 11 songs, you know, and I put that out. And it was people that did not like my rapping at all when I put that project out. But what I understood and they didn't understand was that was like the BL'EVE Brown Bible, like verse 1 or whatever you want to call it, chapter.
Yeah.
I studied that out after I enjoyed it, you know what I mean? And that project did really well for me. It made those people believers in me as an artist, because prior to that, they're just like, oh man, BL'EVE make beats. That's what BL'EVE does. He make beats.
Yeah.
I told a couple people like, yeah, I'm about to make a project. It was like, ha, 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 ha. You know what I mean? But, so I'll put it out. They didn't like it, but it started to do well globally. You know what I mean? And it started to do well. And then I was studying it. So all of the inflections that were kind of off in it to my ear that I heard over time, of giving it a little bit of distance after I enjoyed it and then just started dwelling into it, I was able to tighten all of that up for my music moving forward, especially with the raps, like how you breathe and how you pause and how you do all of that stuff. I use Short Thoughts to mold all of that out. And then when I started coming back around with the next set of music, there's like, D, you stepped it up, D. I was like, right, I stepped it up.
Yeah.
That's thoughts though, you know?
Yeah.
It's me not being afraid to put Short Thoughts out regardless of the few. And the same thing with the mentors and the close people to me that give constructive criticism, you know, they didn't kill it, but they were just like, I gotta hear it. I gotta kind of see where you're going with it.
Yeah.
And then I put it out, you know, some people gave it up. Some people was just like, oh, I didn't get it. And then 2012, I put out Stop Playing. And when I put out Stop Playing, I got a whole bunch of calls because now the flow done stepped up. Everything done stepped up. I'm more comfortable now. I got featured in Double XL, you know, the whole thing. So now people that was just like, I don't know. They're like, yo, I want you to jump on this. I want you to do that. And, you know, it goes from there. You got to make them a believer. If you really know and believe in what you're doing, like I'm a musician. No amount of fame or whatever could ever take that from me. I've been doing this. So when I offer up my creative work, yo, that's what I got right now. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And it's going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
You really understand the arts.
Mm-hmm.
You got to understand the arts, and you got to understand that you got to be fearless with the arts. So if you have a vision and you really believe in that vision, you got to go gun-ho with it. You just want to make sure certain aesthetics are correct. Like, you know, you want to make sure that the mix is right and these kind of things. And once that stuff is correct, you go and you'll find your tribe, like whatever that may be, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Totally. All right, so let's talk business real quick. We've worked on a few tracks together. We've been in situations where we might have someone who doesn't want to give us credit or something like that. But, you know, you've been an independent artist for, you know, I think 15 years or so now, you said. So how important is the music business aspect of things in terms of making sure your business is in line? You know, you set yourself up as if you are a small business. As an artist, we are small businesses. And how do you kind of keep tabs on that and also balance being a creative as well?
Well, when you first start off, you won't have a team, you know what I mean? So like a lot of the stuff is on you, but you know, you want to make sure that your company, if you're really doing this, like if you're saying like, yo, this is going to be what it is, you form a company, even if your company don't make zero, it makes $0 for like 3-4 years. It doesn't matter. You have the EIN number, you ready to go.
You say making like an LLC or something when you talk about making a company.
Set up whatever your entity is, even if it's your name, you know. John Hamilton LLC, and
Yeah.
that ready to go. And you always have that, because here's the thing. When things start to pick up in music, especially, you're not going to really have time to do all of this stuff, and you're going to miss out on money. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. So you want to have the LLC, you want to have whatever, stuff, trademark, even though it's not like super important to like blow your brains out with that in this day and age because of the internet. And you could like put a song up on SoundCloud, and that kind of timestamps when you release that song. Or if you distribute stuff on your own, you could put that out on Spotify, and it has all of these kind of provisions for you, right? But when you set that up, you make sure you get your publishing, whether you want to be with BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, whichever one you pick, when you set that up, because it's all additional monies and revenues that come into you. And some of these things have a time window. So it's just like if you're doing shows, right? Say even if you're doing shows for free right now, and you actually got to connect where you could do dope venues, right? ASCAP pays you for those shows, but you have a 3-month window to submit all of that stuff. You kind of got to know this, because 3-month window, it's like whatever, you know what I mean? And then once you have all of that stuff set up, that basic stuff, I would just really focus on making the product the best that you can make it.
Got you.
Yeah, because the product to get you into all kind of doors. But now when you start to get into these doors, you don't want to be running around trying to set up an LLC, or you don't want to be running around trying to get your ASCAP stuff together or whatever. You just don't, you don't want to do that, because you're going to end up usually in a situation where you feel like you got robbed. And a lot of times it's not that you got robbed, it's just that you weren't ready and things just took off. And then you need a lawyer to sort that stuff out,
Yeah.
Totally. Young guys, when they be like, oh, X, Y, Z happened, it's just that, when they ask you like, yo, what's your ASCAP information? You're like, I don't have that. Yo, where could I send this? What company could I send this check to? I don't have that. And they're gonna be like, all right, come out with me, have this drink. You know what I mean? And then your joint is everywhere. You just like, oh my gosh, they got me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It happens a lot, So yeah.
Totally. So as a young producer, if let's say you're in high school, middle school, early 20s, and you're saying to yourself, this is what I want to do. I want to make a career out of this. At that stage, once you've made that decision, what do you think is the most important thing to do to kind of keep your career moving forward and actually make something into a sustainable business for yourself?
Well, see, the dope thing about high school is that the harsh realities of day-to-day life for most, right, hasn't set in yet. You know what I mean? And if you're a student and you say like, yo, I want to do this, I would make sure that every single person in that high school knows that you make beats. I mean, shamelessly. And when I said that, like, I was that guy, you know what I mean? I was like, hey man, I had the studio in the basement. Hey man, you want to come over, work on some music? And I mean, a lot of the guys said no, you know what I mean? But I don't care. I'm just like, yeah, I'm a producer, man. Yeah, yeah. But you find a few people that be like, yeah, man, let's work on something. And especially now, man, with the internet, bro, with everything that's going on, it's like, yo, you and your peoples could be in your mom's house cranking out some stuff, and you put that online, and that girl that you like that's popular, or that boy that you like that's popular, might come across it and be like, oh, this is my jam. And the next thing you know, you're like, yo, it's lit. You didn't really have that level of entry back in the day. Just you kind of had to go out. Once you did it, you just kind of had to go out, because I was raised in Jersey, and once I graduated from high school, I until I moved to Weehawken, where I live now, which is 15 minutes into Midtown Manhattan, where my offices are, right? Before that, I commuted 2.5 hours each way. So that's like a 4 to 5 hour commute on a good day for years. I did that for years just because the area of Jersey that I was living at, it wasn't enough access to what I was trying to get into and to attain. And I would wake up every day and I hop on the train. I get back home at like 3 a.m. I did that for years, for years.
That's wild.
Yeah. And it's just like, yo, so back to the school stuff. It's just like, yo, if you're in school, bro, come on your Instagram, come on your Twitter. Like, I make beats but every day.
Let people know.
Yo, people are gonna unfollow you and everything. I have friends that were just like, yo, because this is the thing. Short Thoughts just took off on the download circuit. It started getting some downloads out in Cali and everything. But if you knew me around that time, I posted a link to Short Thoughts 1 hour. I mean, not one, every hour, 24 hours for months, bro.
On Twitter?
On Twitter, bro. And I had family members, I had close friends that was like, yo, BL'EVE, man, I love you, man, but your thing is taking up my feed. I got to unfollow you. And I'm just like, all right, you know what I'm saying? No problem, because I got to do this, you know, because it was just, how else am I going to get out? And then from me doing that, whoever was downloading it, you know, it started jumping us, because you start to see on Mediafire, you see the locations back then of where everything was coming from. And they're just like, yo, you start getting like 100 downloads out in Cali. And then the next thing you know, it started going all around the United States. And then boom, it went overseas. And then when it hit Japan, it just went crazy. And it went all the way. I got to like 130 something thousand downloads of Short Thoughts. And then Mediafire had to pull it because I used the XX sample, and the XX started to get popular, and people started calling me like, yo, they're using your song in the Olympics, bro. And I'm like, that's not my song. I sampled it, but it got so big, Mediafire had to pull the link for copyright stuff. So I think the link is up because I was just like, I'm not going to pull it down. So if you go to that link now, I'm pretty sure it's going to pull up the XX project. But mission was already accomplished.
Yeah.
That happened. You know?
You're getting it off the ground.
Yeah, yeah. And I literally 24 hours a day, it was like, hey, check out Short Thoughts. Here's Short Thoughts. You know,
awesome. That's awesome. All right, we have time for a few more questions. Benoit, if you have anything, but I'll ask some real quick. In terms of collaboration versus working alone, what's that like in your workflow when you work with others? How does that help you out? How does that expand your kind of musical horizons and everything?
The collabs are dope because if you're able, you got different kind of creators, right? So you got like selfish creators, right? And you know, that's cool. Where like they have to dominate the creative thought process, you know, and you're gonna come across those type of people, and it doesn't make sense to like hate them or anything like that. But it's just kind of whack because a collaborative effort should be two minds coming together. You know? Don't be afraid to voice your opinion. You know, if somebody's trying to go down the lane of whackness, just be like, you know, I'm not really trying to do that, but let's see.
Join them on that. Yeah.
Like, let's see where we can meet in the middle, you know? And that's the creator I am. So when I'm working with anybody or just, you know, the collabs that we do, I want to know what you think, just like how you want to know what I think, and then we mix that stuff up. So it's just like, yo, this might be a dope drum thing. Yeah. Oh, I think maybe this vocal effect or whatever, you know, might be dope on this sound or whatever. And then you kind of make this beautiful, like, master creation.
Yeah.
Which is totally different than just you doing what you do.
Just being alone, yeah.
I love collabs. I love you get some of the dopest music out of collabs.
Yeah.
I got another question for you, and you've given us a lot of stuff that's gonna really help these kids and just anybody watching. So again, thank you so much, appreciate it. My question for you is, I'm a horn guy, you know. So live. You see, this is the tuba right behind me, right here. You know, so and I teach band all those things. So how do you incorporate live instruments into projects you do, or are you a fan of live instruments at all, or how do you connect your productions to live shows and that transition for those things? You can address any of those.
So for Live shows, the only shows that I've done with like instruments, I produced a indie rock project a few years back because I play the bass too. So I'm always throwing the bass on things. I'm horrible with the practicing of it though. The discipline part of it, as I gotten older, like mine is in the trash. But that's the only time I was able to actually implement it. When I started doing a lot of the shows with the past couple of years, I wanted to start implementing the bass and stuff like that with it. I just never got to a space where the production of the show for me, because like when you're opening act, they kind of just like throwing you in there, you know what I mean? And it's just like either your stuff work or it don't work. And if it don't work, I promise you the techs are not trying to spend any time. Yeah. So you kind of got to go in kind of minimalistic until you could build up to where you could get an actual set that you're able to incorporate that stuff to where it makes sense and it sounds good. I love live instrumentation within music. Anytime that I'm able to do it, I do it, you know? So if I'm working on something and I could get like a guitar buddy of mine to come in and drop some guitar, we do that. Depending on what I'm working on, if I want to throw the bass on there, I throw the bass on there. I have other friends that play trumpet and things like that, you know, we'll throw it in. But one of the things is that you're not always around musicians, you know? Like I grew to be around musicians because I was in band and I was in all of this stuff. So, you know, like, you know, you're a musician. So you just kind of float in that music space. You know what I mean? Some people don't have that. So I would say to work on the digital stuff as much as you can, because that's something that you could kind of control and home in on until you get to that point. But when you do get to that point, it ups the ante, because if you know somebody that, like, say if you know somebody that's really dope on like a old school Moog, you know, the aesthetic that's gonna add, like bass wise, if they do a bass run on one of your digital tracks, whole nother animal, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like whole other thing. But you got to kind of get to that point, or you just got to be around a lot of musicians. And if you are around a lot of musicians, what I do, because I used to be around a few church guys that I worked with, and those guys are like the kings of the most biggest chords you will ever hear, with all the leading melodies you will ever need to feel in your life, right? And you got to just tell them like, yo, bro, I just need you to simplify these chords. I just need you to simplify this for me, you know, 1-4-5, baby. That's just, let's just keep it right there. And sample that stuff. You don't have to actually make it there like with them, but if you could record them, if you got a dope guy that play keys, sample a lot of his stuff or her stuff, you know, and chop that stuff up and start throwing that in your production, because that ups me too, because nowadays you could go on all kind of things and grab sound. And so, you know, you should always know that if you're grabbing the sounds online, it's other people that got the sounds. Now, will they use it like you? Maybe not, because it's a whole creative thing that goes into that, right? But sometimes it happens. But if you got a few friends that play instruments and you sample them, that's a one-of-one thing. So, you know, like if you're going into a beat battle and you got the crazy guitar player that did some, you know, had some distortion and some phase and did a crazy riff, and you put some crazy drums on that and it got you feeling like you, I don't know, Lil Uzi Vert or something, you know what I mean? When you throw that on in a battle, the uniqueness of that is going to blow people away, you know, because they're going to know like, oh, okay, I've never heard this in a sample pack or in anything before. So, yeah, I love the live, because, you know, I come from it, because playing the drums, you know, it's the best feeling is when you do a high school concert and you back there rocking out and you got everybody going hype because you like just learn how to play. And I'm this personal, like 1 in a million, you know. That drum, that whole pattern, when you dealing with live stuff and high, that gets everybody going. So, you know, you come in with that and they going crazy, and it's that feeling. It's a real dope feeling, you know. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Cool. All right, yeah, BL'EVE, is there anything you want to kind of leave our students and people watching this with as kind of like final thoughts on their journey?
Yeah, I'll say this, man, to all my creators out there, my young people, y'all are the future. Always remember that. And always remember that when you're a creator, you have to be fearless as a creator. And your main thing is to home in on your skill and your talent. And also, while you're homing in on your skills and your talents, whatever they might be, and all of you are talented. You just don't know what that thing is. But if you home in enough, you will find it. And you got to take care of your health, physically and mentally, because if you don't, it doesn't matter how great you feel you might be. That aspect of the game will take you down, and it'll change your whole thing. And I've seen it happen to a lot of talented people, so don't get caught up in the music industry aspect of making music, because that's just big business. And when you're ready for big business, you could always step into that field. If you just make music and you practice on homing in, for one, you eliminate running into the sharks of the game, which is the people are just trying to use you and everything, and you have a better chance of having longevity. Like, I do independent work for a reason. I like it. It's not about all of the accolades of things. Do we work and put out records and hope that they go big? Yeah, but it was more so to make a living for me and get out of the streets and all of that nonsense that was going on. So once I got into a situation where I was making money, and I looked at it like this. I don't know what walks of life everybody's coming from, but yo, if you could make $60,000 a year off making music, that's a win. And that's how I looked at it. So outside of any situation that I faced, or whatever the case might have been, I always focused on my bottom line, to where I'm making a good salary doing what I'm doing in the city. So I really didn't care for all the other stuff, because back in the day, they always wanted to sign producers to ghost production situations. I declined all of them, because I was just like, that's not what I'm doing this for. And I've been approached by like the biggest of the big like guys. And it's just like, if I'm going to do this work, I want to get the credit for the work. That's me. And I want to get compensated beyond you just throwing some money. And they would always be like, hey, man, you could come stay at this brownstone and whatever they be talking about. But I was in the city making good money. And this is what I kept telling them. I was just like, look, man, I make pretty good money. So for me to leave what I'm doing to come do this, it's just not worth it. And then now, look, you fast forward all these years later, it's a lot of losers that lost trying to do that game. And I'm talking about from the producers that jumped in it for the quick money, because you're going to spend the money and you never got any credits or anything like that. And the guys that were doing all of that, because shout outs to my young people, you guys started making beats and putting them up online, and it changed the scope of all of that. So now it's yeah, you could get a big publishing deal. You get a big record, you get a big publishing. That's dope, because that's usually good business. You know what I mean? But all of those little underhanded label guys that was like signing up 5-6 producers and then saying that they produced the record, they're like obsolete now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm one of the young guys that was being approached back then for those situations. And they would always say, yo, man, get the money, get the money. And I just like, nah, I'd rather enjoy the journey, because I watched my mom do LPN work and all of that type of nurse stuff. And she's making like $60,000, $70,000 a year. And I'm doing this at my office in Midtown. You couldn't tell me nothing. And then you fast forward all these years later, you might not know me on a main stage of sorts, but I'm very well respected, and I continue to work. And I've had some successes with my recent records, you know what I mean? And I just build on that. So for creators, you build out your world, and make sure that everybody that comes around you, they're looking out for your best interest. Because you got a lot of people that they'll see that magic and they'll just be trying to juice that magic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, BL'EVE, thanks a lot for joining us on this. And, you know, again, BL'EVE's also one of our advisors for Department of Sound. So he's been around since we started this a couple of years ago. I came to him with the idea. So thanks again for that as well. And anyone who wants to follow up with him, we're going to put his socials in all the messages below. And yeah, thanks again, BL'EVE. Have a great Friday.
Shout out to Jessica. Shout out. More pleasure meeting you, brother.
Absolute pleasure, bro.
Yes, again, you know.
For sure, for sure.
To all my kids out there, man, keep killing it, man. Y'all doing a good job. Y'all got looking good out here, man.
For sure, for sure. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks for coming, BL'EVE. Appreciate you.